Hey guys, it's Chris, the Earthborn Alchemist, and this video is a must-watch for everybody that wants to go out foraging. This is the universal edibility test. Now, what I want you to remember is plants and the growing world. Plants are generally full of alkaloids, they're full of phytonutrients, they're also full of phytotoxins, and they're full of chemicals and things that can very badly end your day. And I literally mean that. Like, if you eat the wrong plant, you could very quickly end up either doubled over in pain, you could end up in hospital if you're lucky, or you could end up dead. And that's what you're dealing with when going out foraging. So as a general rule of thumb, you have the ability through this universal edibility test to discern if something is truly edible, and it's a very thorough test that was developed back in the day by a couple of survival instructors that wanted to create a benchmark, universal, worldwide test that worked everywhere, worked every time. And that's what this is. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to find a plant that's in ready enough supply that is going to give you decent enough food to go through the effort to do this. There's no point if all you've got is like one little thing to go through this process for it. If you've got this growing everywhere around you and you want to determine if these leaves are edible or not, perfect. If this is all you found, kind of pretty pointless in putting it through this, unless it's for your own experimentation. So, what do we do as part of this test? You've determined you've got a plentiful supply of this food. You've got potential food. You want to have a look at the plant itself. You want to break a small piece away and you want to see if it produces a milky sap. Now, whilst that's not always a universal absolute disqualifier, it is always best not to work with milkweeds because they can create a lot of problems, and it can be indicative of some really strong toxins in the plant. So break it, and if it's white or milky sap that comes out, better not to use it. The other thing you're doing is you're also looking on the surface of the leaves and the stems for fine hairs or potential irritants. If it scratches like the surface of your skin, if it feels prickly, if it feels horrible to your hands, there's a really good chance that it's going to do the same in your mouth, your lips, your throat, and all the way down your esophagus. So potentially get rid of that if it's got those spikes or hairs or anything like that on it. Okay, you've gone through that, you found a readable supply, and there's no hairs, there's no milk sap, and you determine, okay, at this point I'm ready to start. What you do is you break the plant into its respective pieces. So what I mean by that is you take your leaves and you put them in a bundle, right? You strip all the leaves, you put all the leaves in a particular bundle. You then take your stems and you put the stems in a bundle, right? So you've got two piles now, leaves and stems. If you're working with roots and you've dug out the roots, you put the roots into another bundle. If it's got flowers, you take the flowers off and you put the flowers into another bundle. Now, you've done that and you've separated it because you are looking at each part of the plant as a completely separate entity. Oftentimes, a plant will have a completely inert, harmless component in its flowers, but its seeds are deadly toxic. Or it might have perfectly edible leaves, however, the roots will kill you if you eat it. Right, so we're going to treat each component by itself. Now, once you've done that, you start the process. The first thing you do, and we're going to start with the leaves, you crush it and you smell it. If there is a pungent smell, if it smells off, if it doesn't smell good in any way, shape or form, discard it. Move to your next pile. Move to the stems, the flowers, the roots, whatever else you're working with. Each step of the way, if it fails that step, discard immediately. Right, so you've crushed it and you've smelled it. Doesn't smell unpleasant. All right, so the next step is you find a delicate part of your skin, generally the inside of your wrist or up inside your upper arm, soft flesh, and you crush it until you feel a little bit of the oils coming out, and then you rub it on that part of your flesh, right? Now you work on a rule of threes, and what I mean by that is 30-minute increments. You've rubbed that on, you wait 30 minutes. If you're getting any form of reaction, rash, dermatitis, burning, tingling, anything at all, when you rub it on that part of your skin, discard, move on, don't mess with it. If at that point then there is no reaction after 30 minutes, you move to the next step. Crush the leaf and you rub a small piece of that same oil onto your lip. Your lip is a different type of skin. If you, once again, you wait 30 minutes, if there is absolutely no indication at that point that you're getting any form of burning, tingling, any form of discomfort, then it has passed that test and is ready and suitable to move on. If you get any of that within that 30-minute period on your lips, discard, move to the next part of the plant. The next thing that you want to do once you've determined that is you want to prepare the food the way that you're going to eat it. If you're going to eat it raw, you will do this raw. If you're going to cook it in a pan, you prepare it in the pan. If you're going to boil it, you boil it. So you prepare it the way that you're going to prepare it. And then you take a very small piece of it and you put it in your mouth and you hold it in your mouth, swirling it around, chewing on it a little bit. You do that for 30 minutes. Do not swallow. Keep it in there for 30 minutes. If you start to notice any form of burning, any form of discomfort, any form of adverse effects starting to form, spit it all out, give your mouth a good wash with water and wash it all out and move on. Next part of the plant, next plant. If it passes that test, then you swallow a small piece of it. And now you get to wait 6 hours. This is critical. Follow this rule. 6 hours once it's in your stomach. 6 hours is a good time frame for it to completely move through the stomach and through the digestive process. At this point, that 6 hours is going to let you know if you're going to react to this, and a small piece of it will allow you to know whether you're going to react to it or not. So as you can see from this process, not only are you determining if a plant is edible, you're determining if a plant is edible for you. And what I mean by that is there are plant species that certain races on the planet have evolved to stomach while other people cannot. The pandanus growing along the coastlines of Australia particularly is one of these plants. It grows a giant cluster of nuts, and the indigenous Australian, the Aboriginals, are able to eat those nuts. Now, if I ate them, even though I grew up in Australia, if I ate those nuts, I would be violently sick. So this is determining whether something is edible for you. 6 hours, if you've had no reaction, then you can start eating that part of the plant. Now go small, right? Don't start by guzzling it down, even if it is friendly to you. If you haven't eaten it before, if you eat too much of it, you can end up with diarrhea, you can end up with nausea and vomiting, you can end up with adverse effects still, even if the plant is friendly to you. It might contain things like lectins. It might contain other nutrients or alkaloids in there that are in small enough doses not to cause a severe reaction in you, but when you've eaten too much of it, will build up and cause a reaction. So go easy. Take your time with it. And remember, just because one part of the plant is edible does not mean the entire plant is edible. At this point, it's super important. Just because you've done the test and the leaves have proven themselves to be edible does not mean the flowers or the seeds or the roots are edible. You have to do the test for every single component of the plant to determine. And if any part of the plant fails, any part of the test, discard that part of the plant. Make sense? Very cool. A word on mushrooms. Right, mushrooms are known as fungi for a reason. They are truly a fun guy. Anyone that's ingested the right kind of mushrooms will testify to that fact. Having said that, mushrooms are a whole different ballgame. This test will not work on mushrooms. Unless you are skilled at identifying mushrooms, do not mess with them. There is toxins in mushrooms that is more powerfully toxic than anything else on the planet. And it will end your day very quickly and very horribly if you get it wrong. So don't do this test with mushrooms or fungus at all. If you see it growing on the side of a log, leave it alone unless you know what it is. That being said, have fun with this. Follow the guidelines and be safe. Always err on the side of caution. If you're unsure, discard. Now, something that you can do whilst you have access to civilization, the internet, all the modern trimmings, is you have the ability to download a plant identification app such as PlantNet. Very cool. Go and snap a photo of something, it will bring up what it is. It'll give you several, and then you can look several options, you can look through it and you can say, yep, that's what this is, and identify. That will create about a 90% assurity in you that you're looking at the right plant. The next thing you want to do if you are going to eat that plant is put it through this universal edibility test. That is the only way to be 100% sure. So use something like PlantNet, an app, to determine if something is edible for you. And once you have identified that plant and you are at what I would call 90% sure that you're looking at that particular plant species, then put it through the edibility test and eliminate that remaining 10%. Make sense? Have a beautiful day, friends. Use this, go and learn about the natural world, take this journey, and the next video I'm going to upload is going to be on the energetic exchange between us and the plants. And when you do start harvesting a plant for your purposes, whether it's eating or using the materials, it's very important that we're giving back, because right now we're in a use-abuse type relationship with nature. It's super important for us to leave that paradigm behind, especially now more than ever, and start connecting with a use exchange, energetic exchange. So I'm going to cover that in my next video. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you all soon.